Good morning. I would like to begin by thanking Pau and Raul for the invitation and apologizing for my Spanish, or my Castilian Spanish, as we call it in Brazil. My Spanish is quite rocambolesque, so I apologize in advance. I'm going to make some reflections, and I apologize to my interpreter friends. I would like to tell you an anecdote about my arrival to Valencia. It's the second time I've been in Valencia. We are trying to build a bridge for cooperation with people working in economy and culture, a bridge with Federal University in Rio Grande do Sul in Brazil. And we have quite a lot of experience in economy patterns. But anyway, when I arrived in Lisbon, the customs officer said to me, "Oh, you're going to Valencia?" I said, "Yes." He says, "What are you going to do? Eat paella?" And I said, "Well, yes, probably. I'm going to eat paella because it's very good, but I'm going to a conference on the culture economy, how culture can contribute in economic terms to the world economy." And the customs officer said, "With the current recession, you're wasting time on things like this." And I felt like I was back home, because in Brazil, that's the attitude people take. And the previous speakers, Anna said, first food and then culture, or breakfast, then culture. And in Brazil, since we have some very serious social problems, they also take this approach, this attitude to the economy based on culture. Jordi spoke about Porto Alegre, which is my hometown, so it was a good lead up to my presentation. So I am now going to read my presentation. Until now, I've been ad-libbing, and so I'm going to tell you how we have worked this concept of the culture-based economy in Brazil. And in the second part of the presentation, I'll talk about how some actions in Brazil form a sort of dialogue with activities of other partners. In my experience, I had an experience under the Lula government. I coordinated actions at the Department for Economy-Based Culture with the Brazilian government. I'm an academic, and so I was given this challenge to work the economy-based culture within economic issues, or the economic system, as Pau said. And the economic system isn't the same as the economy. At first, I thought I could work within the economic system, but it wasn't possible. In the government, we tend to think about the economy and how the economy can have a broad impact on terms of identity, on the evaluation of local identity, and in terms of heritage. So I'm going to read very quickly some considerations, some reflections in the time available. It's not easy to talk about experiences in a continent that is 10,000 kilometers away. You need to have knowledge of the local situation and so on. And you have to know the reality, and the reality of an external observer, in this case myself, can point out certain aspects of the reality that brings in some new references, just like a kaleidoscope that needs light from outside to form images. And one thing in capitalism is how the economy is going to affect society. When we talk about crisis in developed countries, we have two different types of crisis. In the developed countries, we have the crisis of the economic system. And in the less developed countries, we have a crisis in development. History shows that serious crises lead to new models, and we have to sometimes these are more extreme impacts and affect the welfare state. And we have to find forms of sustainable development, conservation of the environment, and so on. And this is the essence of the Sostenuto project, where we deal with issues that are very important in the academic field, in political issues, and in culture. I think that we have strategies that can contribute towards the solution of the crisis in Europe. According to Clifford Geertz, culture is a set of beliefs, traditions that form the identity of a people. And it is established by the people themselves. A study for the formation of economic assets that are used as the input of cultural values and the impact on the behavior of economic agents. And this, in cultural practice, there is a material impact, such as employment, which has a multiplying effect. But there is another material front, and that is the transmission of economic external factors from the cultural symbols. And so there are some things that are ignored in economic calculations and go beyond statistics. It's very difficult to measure the total impact without taking these intangible elements into account. The economy has its tools to evaluate these, for example, human capital, social capital, endogenization of technologies, environmental sustainability, and others that are also aspects of the Sostenuto project. We also have the creative processes, and beyond the symbolic value and economic potential, in my opinion, one of the main aspects is this. And now I'm going to talk about economy, not only the economic system, And we're talking here about empathy, and that is the capacity to emotionally understand and to value something culturally, to identify another person and perceive the role of our peers in the economic context. And this is what should be the basis of sustainable economy. Apart from the multiplying factors, we have this transformation through empathy, the capacity to respect social values, to increase self-esteem, conserve the environment, and to conserve experiences of the city within the urban context. These are typical properties of economic development based on cultural capital. And we tend to focus on economic growth, and very often this is disorderly growth. Until very recently, the added value concept only referred to tangible assets that required great investments and referred to financial assets, real estate, and so on. But now we are seeing a transformation, and we talk about intangible assets that have a creative value in the 21st century as the main depositories of added value in the 21st century. And Paul made a mention of this question of production process, production, innovations, technologies, and so on. I think we know that the same products lead to innovation, and this transfers its effects to the whole economy. So we have to think about a culture-based economy and think about activities that emerge from creative activities and lead to products that have a high added value. And this is not necessarily something that depends on traditional economic growth that is measured through the GDP. We are talking here about the economic system. So we have a revolution in the field of intellectual property rights and cultural rights, the distribution of technological means for creation and the dissemination of the cultural product. And this is a sustainable way to ensure that we will have a homogeneous adoption and integration of technology. So if we look more specifically at the similarities of the Brazilian example and the guidelines of the Sostenuto project, I would like to very briefly refer to three examples of innovative action in Brazil that more or less ignored public policies. This, what we have done over the past 2 years is to propose public policies in Brazil to carry out actions that were very coherent. The first one was innovation in the music market. There are some analogies, but there is a consistent growth in Brazil. This is known as the off-route track. So it's off the official track, and there are two channels for funding. This is an initiative of people who work with music, and in 2 years, this grew to 25 of the federal units in Brazil. They have their own currency. They have trade and services, both within and with the network. From what I heard about Bunker, it's something similar. There's also a para-state organization. It's known as SEBRAID. And in 2011, they had an experience in the center of Rio de Janeiro. It was a reference experience in Brazilian craftsmanship in a historic center, and the aim was to increase the exhibition of traditional crafts and to promote crafts business. And we had a number of national references, and I was the coordinator of an experience on the the value chain of design and fashion in Brazil, and we observed that a large amount of cultural value is lost. It's not, we don't take advantage of our own design, where Latin American culture finds its expression. The world looks towards Brazil for two events that are currently under construction: the World Football Cup. This has led to a great deal of construction work. The planning of these works is quite suspicious, quite dubious, and they may eventually become the skeletons of the World Cup. We may have buildings that have nothing to do with society. I'm sorry for my tropical Spanish, but to conclude, and before they cut off the microphone, because I'm taking up a lot of time, but to conclude, this urban growth experienced by Brazil is important for dialogue with projects like Sostenuto. We also have the Rio de Janeiro Olympic Games. These represent a similar risk to the risks of the World Cup. The distribution is not very good. Brazil has an historic opportunity. It has a great opportunity too in social and economic terms, and in terms of development. I think we have an excellent opportunity for growth, for economic growth, for other types of growth. I hope that I have been up to the standard of the previous speakers. I think that this bridge that we have established between Valencia and Porto Alegre will become a bridge that brings effective results for the Brazilian economy. I hope next time we meet, I speak much better Spanish or even Valencian language. Thank you very much.